It's quite remarkable what's taken place in Dhaka over the last 2 weeks. For those not as familiar, Sheikh Hasina, the prime minister who was in power, who won re-election, I believe, for the fourth time just a couple of months ago, in a major way, had to flee the country. She's made her way across the border to India, where she got safe harbor because protests had gotten out of control. People had managed to storm the prime ministerial residence and so on. What had happened broadly, something we've discussed a little bit about Indian politics also on this podcast, which is the spark was the sense of a lack of adequate job opportunities and high inflation, but consolidating around the idea of giving preferential access to jobs in government posts to those who were veterans of the 1971 independence war. This is when Bangladesh was carved out of Pakistan, when they fought a war against the Pakistani army. But what had happened over time is that these special reservations for jobs that had been carved out for veterans from that war were then given also to their descendants, who are by and large belonging to Sheikh Hasina's political party. And so it was seen as favoritism. That got into a sense that she was running an authoritarian state that attempted to become a one party state. There's been a lot of critical and useful questioning of the model, despite it being very economically useful for Bangladesh, which seemed to go over India's per capita GDP at some point over the last year or two. That it had politically turned into quite a sclerotic sort of one party state. And so student protesters, basically unhappy with these quotas being given to supporters of Sheikh Hasina's political party, took to the streets. It turned into a broader protest against just the way the country is run, the economy, but also the elites essentially in power. And you have the remarkable sight of Sheikh Hasina's government following much quicker than most would have expected. And the army chose not to prevent more students and protesters emerging on the streets, and then have shepherded in or assisted the technocratic government that has taken power, technocratic group of folks who are now in charge, headed by Muhammad Yunus, who folks would know as a former Nobel Peace Prize winner for his work on microfinance. Um, and Yunus has been politically active over the last 15 years. He was an outspoken critic of Sheikh Hasina. He's thought about starting a political party before he was targeted by Sheikh Hasina. And so it's an interesting choice. Both someone who works with economics, who's known globally, is a technocrat, but will have major challenges ahead in it, including just how to bring Bangladesh back onto the path of democracy and open and free elections, which is going to be very complicated. So I don't know if that nutshells it a little bit. We may have the opportunity to come back to Bangladesh at some point.
Can I ask one really basic question that you might not know the answer to, and it is a basic and ignorant question, but it's given that Sheikh Hasina won an election this year, so not long ago, and won it quite comfortably, and has been ousted from power by some kind of popular uprising. What does that tell us about Bangladeshi elections and their legitimacy? Is this about is this something that should lead us to question the result that has recently happened, or is it something that should make us think there has just been a big shift in the last 6 months in terms of public opinion there?
I don't know enough about the electoral process itself to question the result. And I don't believe it's majorly under question in terms of the casting of votes and so on. But there was a clear sense that over the last 10 years, the playing field had been tilted heavily towards Sheikh Hasina and her party, including the jailing of opposition leaders, including severe repression, a fair amount of violence across the board. and the sense that there was not a genuine opportunity for dissenting voices to turn up. It's complicated in Bangladesh, as it is in many post-colonial states, of the sense that Sheikh Hasina's party represents the secular and modernizing elite, and the opposite side is the Islamist and regressive masses, which is, it's a very simple cliches that are often wrong. But those are the complications. I wouldn't. There's definitely an upsurge of critique and voiced against her, but there was also the sense that the elections were not representative, in part because they were not genuinely fair. Whether they were free, I guess it's a more complex question. I may not have the answer to that.